On a cracked, concrete court in Santo Domingo, volleyball is more than a game. It's a rhythm, the slap of rubber soles on faded lines, the sharp sting of a serve on the palms, the soft thud of the ball as it kisses forearms and arcs back over the net. It is six bodies moving like one, feet shuffling, lungs burning, eyes fixed on a sphere of leather that promises, for an hour or two, that life can be about nothing but timing and trust. For a 13-year-old girl in Villas Agrícolas, volleyball was exactly that, a small, bright future she could hold in her hands. Just 15 minutes away, the Felix Sanchez Olympic Stadium and Juan Pablo Duarte Olympic Center stood as her beacon, a place where Dominican dreams take flight. Built for the 1974 Central American Games, home to youth tournaments, and Felix Sanchez's own path to Olympic gold, it was where her father promised to take her one day, to spike under those lights, to feel the roar of a real crowd. She had a practice shirt she treated almost like a uniform, not new, not expensive, but hers. She washed it carefully, hung it to dry where the sun could find it, folded it, and kept it ready for the next session. That shirt meant the Olympic courts were coming. It meant there would be a next time. Volleyball teaches you that if you stay ready, if you keep your knees bent, your eyes up, your hands steady, you can return almost anything that comes at you. But there are blows that no child can see coming, and attacks no one ever teaches you how to block. This is the story of Aishla Chanel Marte Paniagua, and of the day the girl who dreamed of the Olympic courts never made it back to practice.
Yo soy una hija del Intisol, de la Pachamama y del Intisol. Yo soy hermana del pueblo Coya, del Inti hermano y de la Aymara, la Aymara. Un indio me guía a la libertad.
Before we get into today's story, I want to give you a gentle heads up. This episode talks about SA, DV, and violence against a child. I'll avoid the graphic details, but the themes themselves are pretty heavy. If you are a survivor or if you are just not in a place to hear that right now, please feel free to sit this one out. Your safety and mental health come first. I'll see you on the next one. Nicolás de Ovando Street is named after Fray Nicolás de Ovando, the first major Spanish governor of Santo Domingo in the early 1500s. Streets with his name exist in multiple Dominican cities, especially in older, densely built zones, because he oversaw the early urban organization of Santo Domingo during the colonial period. Villas Agrícolas developed in the 20th century as a working-class, industrial-adjacent neighborhood shaped by internal migration, informal construction, and population growth. Areas like Los Obreros are typical of Santo Domingo's inner neighborhoods: high-density, informal or semi-formal housing, narrow alleys, called callejones, that extend inward from main roads, multiple households sharing tight space, water access, noise, and daily life. These alleys are not mapped the way formal streets are. They often don't appear in official city planning the way avenues do, but they house hundreds of people. On paper, the address says Callejón Los Obreros, but what the name doesn't tell you is that the street doesn't really end. It folds inward. From the noise and movement of the main road, there's a narrow opening you could pass by without even noticing. No sign, no wide entrance, just a slit between buildings. And if you step into it, the city changes. The avenue disappears behind you. The traffic hum dulls. The air tightens. And suddenly, you're inside Los Obreros. Not a street, but a long, living corridor. An alley. Concrete underfoot. worn smooth in places by decades of footsteps. Homes pressed shoulder to shoulder, their walls painted in sun-faded greens, yellows, and blues. Zinc metal roofs, metal gates, small windows, electrical wires looping overhead like unfinished sentences. Barrels for water sit outside doorways. Laundry lines stretch between second floors, the smell of cooking drifting from somewhere deeper in. This is not a place you pass through. This is a place you belong to. Inside this alley, houses are not arranged side by side. They're arranged toward each other. Life faces life. Doors open into shared space. Every sound carries. Every argument echoes. Every joy travels. Here, neighbors just don't live nearby. They live with each other. Children grow up in the same few hundred feet of concrete. Everyone knows whose daughter is whose, who is fighting, who left, who came back, who shouldn't be there anymore. Los Obreros isn't hidden because it's small. It's hidden because the city grew over it. Layer after layer, generation after generation, until what remains is this narrow spine of homes, tucked behind Nicolás de Obando Street, holding entire families inside a passageway the width of a driveway. This is where Aishla lived. Not on a corner, not on an open block, but inside the city, inside the alley. Before she was a headline, before she was evidence, before she was spoken about in courtrooms and news segments, Aishla was the 13-year-old daughter of Santa Angélica Paniagua Jiménez, mostly known as Nairobi, and Joaquín Antonio Marte Perez. She had soft features that immediately marked her as a beautiful child. She had a rounded face, smooth skin, and large, gentle eyes that give her an open, tender expression. Her hair was long, dark, and straight, framing her face naturally. She was at the age where childhood and adolescence overlap, where the body is changing, the voice is changing, and the way you see the world is changing. Where you're old enough to start imagining a future, but still young enough to believe it can be beautiful. She was a second-year high school student, which in the Dominican Republic usually means mornings in uniform, notebooks tucked under one arm, and hair pulled back for the heat. It means walking to school or catching rides. It means homework, group chats, laughter, gossip, teachers who scold, and teachers who protect. It means trying to figure out who you are while the world keeps telling you who you should be. At 13, psychologists describe kids as standing at the doorway of identity. They're beginning to form goals, attach themselves to dreams, and imagine independence. They don't just want to survive the present, they want to escape it, to outgrow it, to build something better. Aishla already was. Her dream was volleyball. Not casually, not as something to pass time. She dreamed of becoming a professional volleyball player, of training, of being signed, which in the Dominican Republic means being chosen by someone with power in sports, a real team, given a place to train, and a future built around the sport she loved. And when she spoke about that future, she didn't start with herself. She started with her mother. She will tell her mom, I'm going to buy you an SUV. I'm going to take you with me when they sign me. I'm going to build our own house. These weren't fantasies about fame. They were promises. Promises that sound simple in the United States. A car, a house, stability. But in a working class alley in Santo Domingo, those promises mean something else. They mean security, escape, breathing room. They mean getting your mother out of a narrow corridor of concrete and into a life where doors don't open into shared spaces and dreams don't have to be whispered. For a 13-year-old to dream like that tells you something. It tells you she wasn't only imagining a career, she was imagining responsibility. Children who talk this way often carry adult awareness early. They see stress, they feel limits, they notice when money is tight, when walls are thin, when arguments leak through doors. They learn quickly that love sometimes means fixing things. Her family described her as strong, not prone to showing vulnerability, the kind of girl who held herself together. the kind who defended her mother when things got loud, the kind who did not fold easily into tears. That strength showed up in the way she loved, because Aishla didn't just dream of volleyball in the abstract. In the Dominican Republic, children like Aishla grow up fast. They walk past adult conversations. They see work strain, family strain, neighborhood strain. They still laugh, still dance, still fall in love with music, sports, phones, and friends. But underneath it, many of them are already planning exits. Sports, migration, success. A way out, a way up. A way to take people they love with them. And she was already doing that at 13, before anyone said her name on the news, before anyone called her a victim. She was a daughter, a student, a girl with a volleyball dream, and a future that, to her, felt close enough to promise. Aishla's mother and father separated when she was in her toddler years. A couple of years later, Nairobi began a relationship with Santos Lora Vargas. Aishla was around 7 years old when Santos entered her home. In the Dominican Republic, when a man moves in with a woman and her children, he doesn't need a wedding ring to be called a stepfather. The title comes with the door key. This adult male now sits in the dominant seat of the household. For 6 years, Santos lived inside that role. By July 2023, this was the world Aishla knew. Santo in and around the home. According to relatives and neighbors, the relationship between Nairobi and Santos was not peaceful. It was marked by constant arguments, repeated conflicts, ongoing problems that did not resolve, but recycled. The home is described again and again as volatile. Not one bad night, but many. A place where voices rose often. Within that home, Santos held the position of adult male partner. But people close to the family say he didn't carry the responsibilities that seat demands. He didn't provide financial stability. He did not bring emotional safety. He did not function as a protector. According to people who knew the household, he struggled with drug use, and that instability spilled into everything, into his moods, his reactions, into how conflicts ignited and escalated. Because he did not provide, Nairobi worked. She left the house to earn, to sustain, to hold up what he didn't. That meant Aishla remained inside a space governed by an adult man who held power but not care, authority without protection, presence without nurture, control without responsibility. Neighbors and relatives describe Santos as aggressive, as confrontational, as a man known in the area not for warmth but for violence. And inside that world was a teenage girl, a girl who witnessed DV, a girl who did not stay behind doors when it happened, a girl who intervened. They say Aishla would physically jump on him when he hit her mother, a child inserting her body between an adult man and her mother. That detail alone tells you everything about the home. Children do not do that in safe houses. They do that in houses where fear arrives faster than adults. People close to the family say arguments between Santos and Nairobi were frequent and intense. So frequent that eventually Nairobi ended the relationship. She kicked him out the home. She told him he was not wanted there, that neither she nor her daughter wanted him in that house. She even warned him she would go to the police if he continued. But removal does not erase access. Not in dense neighborhoods. Not in alley communities. Not when someone knows the rhythms of your home. And even after he was put out, Santos did not disappear from their lives. According to neighbors, he had been threatening to kill Aishla. Not privately, not subtly, publicly. One neighbor, Marta Sanchez, stated that he said openly at a corner store that he was going to kill her. People in the community say they heard him more than once. They warned Nairobi. They told her to leave him completely. They told her they feared a tragedy was coming. But Nairobi even stopped speaking with some of the neighbors who were warning her. Santos showed violent behavior, drug use, jealousy, control. They say he did not like that Aishla had friends. He did not like school friends, which some were boys, to visit her. One time, he struck Aishla in the face with an object because a friend had come to see her. It's also been reported that Joaquin, her biological father, was afraid of Nairobi and Santos. He was told on various occasions about the situation his child was facing, but he did nothing due to fear, that he was mustering up the courage to make moves, to take Aishla from the home to live with him and his current wife. And yet, according to relatives, when Nairobi confronted Santos about his threats, he denied them. He told her he would never hurt Aishla. This is how violent homes confuse reality. Threats spoken publicly, denials spoken privately. Sunday, July 16th, 2023, was a rainy day. Not the kind of rain that passes, the kind that settles in. By midday, the sky over Santo Domingo had collapsed into a low, unmoving gray. The air was heavy. It was wet before the rain even touched the ground, and when it finally came, it poured. Water struck the metal roofs in hard, relentless drops. 1,000 small explosions at once. The sound swallowed everything. Voices, footsteps, radios, arguments, laughter. The rain on those roofs isn't background noise. It's a wall. It turns entire neighborhoods inward. Doorways darken. Buckets appear. Towels are pushed under doors. Children are pulled inside. Windows are closed. Conversations end. The outside disappears. Aishla had come home from volleyball practice she had in the morning and decided to take a nap when she got home. Nairobi called Aishla over the phone at around 11 a.m. Aishla sounded like she was still sleeping. Nairobi told her to wake up. It was almost lunchtime. Aishla told her that she startled her and asked if she could sleep a little longer. Nairobi said okay. She told her she'd still be out for a while longer. Little did Nairobi know this would be the last time she would ever speak with her daughter. Soon after that phone call, at around or a little bit before 2 p.m., Santos entered the home. He was carrying a knotted cable cord and a bleach bottle in hand. He knew the patterns. He knew the schedule. He knew Nairobi was not home. He also knew that the rain would swallow every single sound. He entered Aishla's room. He essayed her. He made her drink from the bleach bottle. He then strangled her with the cable cord and her pillow. When he was done, he covered her with her sheets, that she appeared undisturbed. Now, get this. He put on one of her pants afterwards. He then sat down on the bed beside her and waited. When he killed Aishla, Nairobi was working. He decided to call her at work to let her know he had killed her. He called and said, quote, "I hit you where it hurts the most. I killed your daughter." Once again, she didn't take him seriously. Because you see, that's exactly how abusers work. They make threats so extreme, so unbelievable, that they sound like exaggerations. And I wonder, did she think he was speaking out of anger? How do you understand this moment? Leave a comment and let me know what you think, because I am truly curious. A short while later, very concerned, Nairobi returned home. She found Santos seated on the bed beside Aishla, holding the extension cord, with a container of bleach nearby and a towel that smelled strong of rubbing alcohol. She turned right around back towards the living room, left Aishla sleeping, and asked him, "What are you doing here?" But Aishla wasn't sleeping. Nairobi just didn't know it yet. And this is my speculation here. I believe she went to the living room to get him out of the room, coax him out, so as not to start a showdown in front of Aishla, to protect her in her own way. Santos immediately went to the living room behind her and told her, "Go see what I did to your daughter. I killed her." Santos then asked Nairobi for her cell phone, which she refused. She sat down in the kitchen, unaware that Aishla was already dead. And it was there that Santos went at her with a knife. When Nairobi saw Santos' movements, she grabbed the knife tightly. Then they started to struggle. Santos threw her to the ground. and tried to suffocate her. Nairobi begged him not to kill her and pleaded with him to think of her daughter. She begged him to leave so he wouldn't wake her. She did not yet know her child was dead. And that's when he replied that it's too late. And this is the first time she took him seriously. This was the first moment she understood. After internalizing that, I would say this was one of those moments where the mother sees the child in danger and lifts the car type of moment, because Nairobi managed to escape the struggle and immediately went to the bedroom, where she found Aishla wrapped in a blanket, lifeless and foaming at her mouth. Santos fled immediately. There is a moment that comes after disbelief, after denial, after the brain tries one last time to protect you, and then the body understands. Nairobi's reaction was immediate and uncontrollable. What came out of Nairobi was not crying. It was a scream, a sound that didn't belong to language, a sound neighbors would later describe as a howl, so primal, the kind of sound that doesn't ask for help, the kind that announces something has already ended. She collapsed. Her voice filled the house. People in the alley heard it. Doors opened. Feet ran. Neighbors rushed inside. Someone else backing away because they already knew. Someone shouted Aisla's name. The small house filled in seconds. They lifted Aishla to rush her to the Moscoso Boyo hospital themselves. There was no ambulance to call. Nairobi and the neighbors carried Aishla outside. They moved her through the alley, through the rain-darkened street, but her body did not answer. Her skin told the truth before anyone spoke it, and the movement slowed, and then it stopped, because there's a point when even hope has nowhere left to stand. In the Dominican Republic, hospitals are not automatic doors you run through. Care is conditional. Payment is questioned before they touch anybody. Families know there's no point in going to the hospital, so they turn back. And the next call was for authorities. Santos was already running. Witnesses and police say he fled on foot, and the neighborhood chased him down. Not officers, people, men and women from all over Villas Agrícolas, some on foot, other on motorcycles. They chased him toward the Jacinto Peynado bridge. He ran onto it. 2 witnesses attempted to pull him, but he slipped right off and jumped into the Ozama River to unalive himself. Bystander videos show him in the water, disoriented, struggling, trying to move, not drowning fast enough to escape what awaited above. Men went in after him. Sticks kept him from slipping under. Sticks also hit him. Police finally arrived. In one of the videos, an officer pulls him up by the hair. Others drag him toward the land. Mud, water, shouting, bodies pressing in. He was pulled from the river alive and taken into custody. After the house emptied of screams, it filled with uniforms. Police entered what had been a family home only hours earlier. They moved through the tight passageways to the rooms that still held the heat of bodies, the smell of chlorine and alcohol, and the echo of panic. According to police reports, the National Police assumed control of the scene that same day. The home was secured. Evidence was documented. The body of 13-year-old Aishla was removed and transferred to the National Institute of Forensic Sciences, where the autopsy process began. Days later, the autopsy answered what those walls already knew. According to forensic findings cited by the Public Prosecutor's Office, Aishla died from mechanical asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. Prosecutors also confirmed evidence of SA. These findings became the backbone of the case. Santos was initially held at the Cristo Rey 40th Precinct. As the investigation proceeded, prosecutors prepared the legal framing of the crime. The National District Prosecutor's Office formally charged him with voluntary homicide and incest, along with sexual violence and the attempted killing of Nairobi. In the Dominican Republic, all of that is anchored in their penal code and child protection laws. But what it means in plain language is this. The state treated what he did as the deliberate killing of a minor inside a family relationship, aggravated by sexual abuse and a prior position of trust. Under Dominican law, those are some of the heaviest charges possible when an adult kills a child inside the family. The first hearing was to decide if Santos would stay in jail or get released on bail while prosecutors built their case, also known as coercive measure. But it did not proceed as planned. According to statements made in court, the hearing was postponed after Santos reportedly suffered a drop in blood sugar and had to be transferred to a medical center. The name of the center was not disclosed. Family attorney Maribel Almanzar publicly questioned this explanation. Quote, supposedly his blood sugar dropped, but when he jumped off the bridge intending to evade justice, it didn't drop at all. Those are his strategies. Finally, on July 19th, Santos Lora Vargas stood before a judge for the first time. When Santos was transported to court, it was under strict security measures. Authorities feared retaliation from the victim's family. As he was being transported, still outside the courtroom, he was asked why he did it. His reply, quote, it's the mother's fault. Inside, Aishla's family sat and watched. There's a word for that level of blame, for that kind of moral deflection. Narcdacity. The narcdacity of it all. Narcdacity. The audacity of a person who refuses accountability and assigns blame to the victim. Judge Fátima Veloz of the Permanent Attention Court of the National District evaluated the evidence presented by the prosecutor Janit Elizabeth Pujols Casado. As the court process unfolded, another layer surfaced. When prosecutors reviewed Santos' record, they found that this was not his first encounter with the law. Court documents revealed a 2010 record for violation involving drugs and controlled substances, and 2 prior records from 2012 and 2014 for violation of gender violence and DV. And this is where the story shifts. Because when violence is announced in advance, the question stops being what happened and becomes why nothing stopped it. According to the family's attorney, Aishla's mother had gone to the prosecutor's office in Villas Agrícolas the year before. She reported the abuse. She reported the attacks. She did what women are told to do when things are getting dangerous. The system responded, but only partially. Another lawyer for the family, Malvin Salcedo, would later say that all that came from it was a restraining order. No removal, no monitoring, no protection beyond paper. He said, quote, if action had been taken, perhaps this event would not have occurred. And that sentence sits at the center of this case. Because the warning signs were there, the threats were there, the power imbalance was already established. Inside that home, Santos occupied the dominant seat, not because he provided stability, but because he was the adult male partner, the stepfather, the authority figure by proximity, not responsibility. Aishla was 13 years old. She lived under the same roof. She depended on the adults around her to keep her safe. Her mother, already subjected to violence and intimidation, was navigating separation, the most dangerous moment in abusive relationships. The man had been expelled from the home. His control had been challenged. And this is where DV patterns repeat themselves. Escalation after rejection, punishment after loss of access, violence redirected towards the most vulnerable person in the room. Legally, Dominican justice system recognized this for what it was. Prosecutors charged the crime as intentional homicide with aggravated factors, sexual violence, incest, attempted homicide of the mother. These classifications matter because they show how the state understood motive. This was not an accident, not as a crime of passion, not as a spontaneous fight, but as an extreme abuse of power, trust, and access inside a family structure. And yet, even that recognition came after the fact. When Dominican media reported on Aishla's case, they did not treat this as isolated. They placed it alongside other stories. Girls killed inside their homes, women attacked by partners or ex-partners, children harmed by men who shared their last name or their roof, because this pattern already exists. UNICEF data shows that 63% of Dominican children between ages of 1 and 14 experience violent discipline at home. Nearly half are physically punished. More than half are psychologically assaulted, yelled at, threatened, and humiliated. In neighborhoods like Villas Agrícolas, that risk increases. And when abuse is reported, 80 to 85% of cases involve family members or household authority figures such as parents, step-parents, guardians, or live-in partners. The danger does not usually come from outside. CONANI recorded more than 12,000 children abuse cases in recent years, the vast majority domestic. Stepfathers and partners of mothers rank among the most common perpetrators of lethal violence against minors. So when people ask why this happened, the answer is not hidden in Santos' mind. There's no psychological profile in the public record, no confession explaining motive, no ideology, no money trail, no politics. What exists instead is a system that heard the warning and answered with paperwork, a culture that normalizes domestic conflict until it explodes, a structure where protection often arrives after burial. Aishla's story hurts because it is specific, but it matters because it is familiar. She was not invisible, she was not alone, she was not unheard, she was unprotected, and that is the pattern. If this story brings up anything difficult, or if you or someone you know is experiencing DV or child abuse in the Dominican Republic, I've included support resources with phone numbers and links in the description box. The judge ordered 3 months of preventive detention as a coercive measure, meaning she ordered him held in jail for 3 months while they investigated. Initially, Santos was designated to La Victoria National Penitentiary. Later, rulings confirmed that the detention would be carried out at the Najayo Correction and Rehabilitation Center in San Cristobal. Signs, pictures, and last goodbye messages decorated the inside and outside of Aishla's home. Red roses were placed carefully, deliberately, as well as her shirt she wore to practice volleyball. This is where Aishla returns to her community for the last time.
Edward, mira, baby, dime que aquí.
Her father stands apart. Joaquin does not cry loudly. He looks upward, not because he expects an answer, but because it is the only place left to look. He laments not taking his daughter with him. Across the room, her mother is barely holding herself upright. Her face is swollen, her clothes are disheveled, her voice does not stay steady long enough to finish a sentence. She keeps returning to the same moment. Her daughter was asleep and defenseless. She talks about the last argument, the last refusal, the last time she told Santos not to come back. She had warned him she would go to the police. She believes now, standing in this room, that his anger at being rejected is what followed him back to the house. What she describes is not a monster from the beginning. She describes a man who fought with her and a daughter who stepped in between, a girl who defended her mother. She even remembers the day Aishla came home with a small gift, a shirt and socks bought with bonus money she had earned. She bought it with hope of peace. She said, quote, "Look, Santos, I brought you a gift." But that memory doesn't comfort Nairobi. It breaks her. Because he had told her he would never touch her child. not even with a petal of rose. His words: "This didn't happen in isolation. This happened in a home, in full view of a community, after warnings, after fear, after silence." Aishla was laid to rest Tuesday, July 23rd, at the Cristo Rey Cemetery. Her family, neighbors, and friends surround her coffin. They don't stand back. They lean in. They touch it. They cover it. They know that this is the last place they can physically put their love. By October 2023, a mandatory review hearing was scheduled. After that, the trail goes quiet again. This is normal in the Dominican Republic, especially for complex cases involving multiple charges, minors, and sexual violence. There are no juries here, just judges. The Dominican Republic does not use juries in any legal proceedings. All cases are decided by professional judges within a civil law system inherited from the Spanish and French legal traditions. The Dominican legal system is based on codified law, not case law. That means laws are written, centralized, and strictly applied. Judges are trained career professionals. Legal interpretation is the responsibility of the court, not citizens. Verdicts must be justified in written decisions. Juries are a feature of common law systems like the US and UK, not civil law systems like the Dominican Republic. Nearly a year passed. Then, in July of 2024, the case surfaced again, this time for its conclusion. Inside the Fourth Collegiate Court of the National District, 3 judges took their seats. Judge Keila Pérez Santana, Judge Elias Santini Pereira, and Judge Arisleida Mendez Batista. They reviewed everything: the bleach, the cord, the autopsy, the attempted murder of the mother, the history inside the home. Between July 23rd and July 24th, 2024, they reached a decision. Santos Lora Vargas was found guilty. Guilty of murdering his 13-year-old stepdaughter, sexual assault, and attempting to kill her mother. The sentence was the maximum allowed by Dominican law, 30 years in prison. He was ordered to serve that sentence at CCR Najayo Hombres, a men's correctional facility in San Cristobal. The court also ordered him to pay 5 million Dominican pesos in civil compensations to the mother, which equals to about $80,000 at the time of this recording. Court costs were waived. The family was represented by a public defender. Witnesses described the room as heavy, not loud, not celebratory. Justice, yes, but not relief, because it doesn't bring Aishla back. The full written ruling was scheduled for August 14th, 2024, closing the legal chapter. And that's where the public record ends. There are no documented appeals, no sentence reductions, no reversals. Legally, the case is finished. What remains isn't court files. It's in the spaces where prevention failed. For the family, there was no return to normal. For the country, another statistic folded into a pattern already too familiar. 30 years was handed down, but Aishla's absence is permanent. And nothing in the sentence reaches backward to the moment when someone could have intervened. On that cracked court in Santo Domingo, somewhere a volleyball is still being passed from hand to hand. Somewhere a girl is wiping dust from her knees, tugging at a loose practice shirt, waiting for a serve. Somewhere a mother is working a shift she can't afford to miss. Somewhere a neighbor hears shouting and tells himself it's not their place. Somewhere a man is being given another chance. Somewhere a warning is being swallowed because life is complicated, because love is complicated, because survival is complicated. Aishla's story did not end in a courtroom. It did not end with a sentence, or a prison gate closing, or a judge reading years out loud. It lives where stories like hers always live, in kitchens where women make impossible choices, in bedrooms where children are supposed to be safe, in neighborhoods where everyone knows something is wrong, but no one knows what to do next. We talk about monsters, but monsters don't live in houses. Men do. Families do. Fear does. Need does. Silence does. 3 generations ago, women solved danger by separation, sending children to grandparents, aunts, and other homes, splitting motherhood in 2 to keep kids alive. Today, many women can't afford that option. There are bills, jobs, no childcare, no state safety net, no after-school system built to hold children until their mothers come home, no real infrastructure for protection, only reaction. So the question Aishla leaves behind is not only who failed her, it's what kind of world are we still asking girls to survive in? Because justice after death is not the same as safety before, and a future dreamed is not the same as a future protected. Aishla had a shirt she folded carefully. She had courts she wanted to see. She had a father who promised to take her. She had a life that was already forming, and she mattered. That is why the story was told. So her name is not swallowed by statistics, so her face is not lost to another headline, so her life is not reduced to the way it ended. Thank you for staying with Broken Plátano's first story. I'll see you in the next one.